Welcome to the Prolific Pulse Poetry Podcast. This is your host, Lisa Tomei. Today, we are fortunate to have Geza Tatrallyay. I almost botched up your name. I think I did pretty good.
Yes, that was good. Thank you.
And where are you seated today?
Right now, I'm in San Francisco. We have a small apartment here because we have a daughter and two grandsons, and we love to come and visit them. My main residence is Vermont, Barnard, Vermont, where we also love being. A nice house there out in rural Vermont, and that's where I end up writing a lot of my poetry. So it's good to be here for a month or so now.
Do you primarily now reside in the United States?
Yes, now, yes, that's where I primarily reside. That was 2015. Before that, we spent a lot of time in Europe and South America, Canada. So we've lived all over the world. But now I'm a green card holder. I reside in the U.S.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I'm talking to Geza and asking about where he is actually he was born in Budapest, in Hungary, and escaped from there with his family in 1956 during the Hungarian Revolution. So he since then has gone on and become a Rhodes Scholar and has a lot of education, more that I'm going to mention here, just to say he's a very highly educated man. He has 13 published books in thrillers, memoirs, poetry, and children's books. And all of this information is available on his website. And I'm going to share my screen so you can see the website here because it's really nice. Here we go.
Oh, good. Thank you.
See the books are available on here. Goes on and on and on. Goodness gracious, do you ever sleep?
No. A lot of this stuff that's out there, I wrote some time ago, and I finally, now that I'm retired, I needed to sort of work it into publishable material. And in fact, a lot of the poetry that certainly is in my first two volumes, I wrote as a young man, some of it in college. The latter two volumes, which I'll be focusing on today, are much more recent.
All right. This
So,
one, Extinction. Rebellion
is the latest one, yes. And the one before that is Extinction.
Yeah.
And the focus of both of those is a lot of the poems are focused on climate change.
Right.
What we're doing to the world around us and to other species and ourselves.
Yes, climate change is a big concern, a big issue. And I was really, I don't know if I want to say the word happy because it makes me unhappy that we have to deal with it. Yes. However, as I think you and I are probably pretty close to the same age, we grew up being able to breathe the air and enjoy the sun and play outside and not have to worry. I didn't even know what sunscreen was back then. Where now you have to be really concerned when you go out and spend much time in the sun or anything like that because everything's changed.
Yes. And a lot of my concern is about the world we're leaving for my children and my grandchildren, what they will have to deal with. It's a shame that we have created a world where there are these issues that they will have to face. So now I write about them in my book.
I'm gathering from perhaps the work we've done with government and the studies that you've done, all of that kind of helped you along the way in developing these books.
Yes. A lot of this concern for climate change actually goes back to my studies at Harvard. I had a wonderful professor, Roger Ravel, who was my mentor, and he actually also became Al Gore's mentor. He was one of the first people to speak out about climate change and the effect greenhouse gases are having on the world. So that stuck with me, and then I worked up in the Arctic for 2 summers with the Canadian Geological Survey, and of course I started seeing what is happening to that fragile environment, or understanding how fragile that product is. And that spawned a couple of my thrillers and some of the poems that are in this volume as well. And then living all over the world in my career, I became exposed to different cultures and different environments and what was happening to different places. So that was quite an education in its own right.
Right. Well, I was reading your poetry, and it strikes home, and it really makes valid points about, what's going on. And in a way, it's kind of sad, but in another way, it's an eye opener to what we need to pay attention to. And that's one of the things that, I love about poetry is it does give you an opportunity to express some of these things that aren't always, flowers and, that.
Yes.
And it's another form of expression, another way of reaching people to explain the situation.
Yes, and hopefully it does that. Some of these points do that and reach people and actually get them to say, "Gee, this is something that is a concern. I should do something." What's amazing is the young generation with people like Greta Thunberg, Sweden, and others who are really have taken climate change up as a cause and are fighting for their future, basically. And as an older person now, as an old man, I'm trying to help that process with my poetry. A couple of my earlier involvements in the business world were with renewable energy companies. I helped a couple get started. And my son is very active with the renewable energy fund in Kenya. And quite proud of him. We just visited them. Yeah, so it's an important area of concern and activity. So I hope I do a little bit with my poetry and my thrillers to help that cause along.
How do you reach people with your words? Are you doing any circuiting around that people are aware of these words that you have to share?
Well, before COVID, I was doing live readings, certainly throughout Vermont, which is where we spent most of the year, and also up in Canada. I did some readings. Now it's mostly online. It's wonderful that you're doing this with me because it will hopefully help reach a new audience. And I've done several other podcasts, and hopefully it all adds up to something. I do them with libraries, for example, also with the Vermont Humanities organization. They're going to do some work with me. It's a couple of their programs. So yeah, no, it's good. I enjoy it too. That's the other thing.
Yeah. Well, we're resilient people, give us a pandemic and we'll still figure out a way to communicate with one another.
Exactly. No, it's great. Yeah. No, it's been a revelation how we can do this. Yes, with all these different apps and online situations. So, yes, it's good.
Actually, more people are being heard, more people are sharing, and I think you're finding that even after the pandemic is all said and done, whenever that's going to be, the people are still going to go to virtual meetings more.
Yes. A lot of people won't go into their offices. They'll be working online. My niece is in healthcare, working with a small healthcare startup. They decided they won't have an office anymore. They keep everybody working from home and occasionally have meetings in conference rooms that they can run. So it's a new way of dealing with the working life. So it's good.
Flexibility is the name of the game.
Yeah.
How about you share with us some of your beautiful poetry?
Thank you. I'd love to share. I guess there are 3 poems from 2 of my volumes that I will share, if I may. One from Extinction, and it's the very first poem that is in the volume called The Witching Hour, and it is actually a poem that relates to what we were talking about climate change. So here it is. Witching Hour. Is this the witching hour, the turning point, when the simmering seas boil, spill across the cauldron's brim to flood this verdant earth? Corpses of frogs and fish, seals and birds, our detritus, plastics and rotting hulls, wash up with the silt to bury my feet. Is this the witching hour, the turning point, when wildfires spread, raging across the land, and consume forests and fields, roads and towns, killing with burning heat and acrid smoke all life they find in homes or barns or nests, or frantically fleeing the fated end? Is this the witching hour, the turning point? We know damn well it is, but do nothing. We continue our hedonistic lives, complicit in destroying our wonder. So that
Yeah.
was from Extinction. The next
On
poem,
to,
sorry?
it's spot on to what we're dealing with right
Yes,
now.
yes. And several of the other poems in that volume have a similar theme, and a lot of them focus on specific species that are under threat or simply try to capture the beauty of life out there, just to get that across. The next poem also has a somewhat similar theme, and it's from Extinction Rebellion. And when we lived in Vienna for 5 years, we used to love to go to the to concerts, and especially on New Year's Eve, the Wiener Philharmonic, their New Year's Eve concert, and they played a lot of waltzes. And this one was inspired by Johann Strauss' waltz called Wo die Zitronen blühen, Where the Lemons Blossom. And that's the title of the poem. Where the lemons blossom. Lemons still blossom, and not just in Italy. They thrive in Assam, in Burma, and Persia, as well in California and Florida. You can hear Strauss's Wo die Zitronen blühen waltz today on your iPhone anywhere in the world. Or read the novel by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, his masterpiece, Wilhelm Meister's Apprenticeship. You can delight in Manet's exquisite still life, Le Citron, painted in 1880. But will lemons, will anything, still bloom anywhere when man-caused climate change ravages this planet? Will we be around to appreciate this food, so perfect, its blossom's beauty, its taste tartness, and the wonder of the sublime art it inspired? So the concern there is that not only are we destroying nature and certain species with the world around us, but also that impacts on our what we've created out there, the art world, music, and our ability to appreciate those going forward. If we become extinct, or those things become extinct, so it's a call to action again in a different form.
I appreciate too how your poetry really draws in the senses, as you're reading that, and then you talked about the lemons and that, and then you just started sensing that, and then wondering about that as being a loss.
Yes, yes, that's what
profound.
Yes, that's what I try to do. Yeah. And a lot of my poetry is inspired by other art forms, by music, by visual arts. Certainly, my very first one, Cello Steers, has a lot of poetry that's, and even the title suggests it's inspired by music and other arts. So if I may, I will read one more poem.
Okay.
That is more focused on personal extinction. As I become older, I realize that I'm a mortal human being, and eventually I will no longer be around either. So this is a poem which I wrote a couple of years ago. It's called When I Die. When I die, who will grieve for me? Who will shed tears when the bell tolls? When I'm no longer conscious, no longer feeling and loving, will you, dear, kiss me one last time, hold my ice-cold hand to your heart? And when my body burns to ashes or decays, devoured by maggots, how long, love, before you forget my face, my voice, my touch, my laugh? When you walk through the fall forest, swim in our pond below the falls, will you remember our delight sharing such sunny summer days? And when you lie alone at night, or naked in another's arms, will you still evoke our great love, the ecstasy of our coupling? When our children come from afar, over dinner and lots of wine, will you smile as you reminisce about my quirks, faults, and foibles? When you play with our grandchildren, sing them a song, kiss them goodnight, will you gently remind me, dear, that I love them with all my heart? And as you read these, my poems, my cello skills sotto voce, will you try hard to remember the joy of our life together? For there will be no more of me, only what is left in your heart.
Wow.
So that's really about mortality.
Mhm.
We all become extinct at some point. So whether we do anything about climate change or not, it's our fate. But in the meantime, we should certainly try and better the world and live as full a life as possible.
Hope we have as long as possible.
Yes, yes, thank you. So I can share other poems if you'd like, but those are the three that I thought we'd focus on different aspects of poetry.
They're really very profound, very prolific poetry there that you offer. I would encourage people to check out your books. I am in the process of reading through Extinction now, and it's drawing, and you have a lot of haiku in there.
Yes,
I'm fond of.
Yes, so I lived for a year in Japan, and that's where in my early 20s I worked at the World's Fair Expo 70, 1970, and that's where I became exposed to haiku, and I fell in love with the art form. I love it for its terseness and just with a few words, a few syllables, you're conveying a feeling or a vision of nature or something like that. It to me it captures the essence of what poetry should be. It's really being as succinct as possible, but still getting a wonderful image across. So I do write a lot of haiku, and because I put them in volumes with other poems, I usually use a phrase or a couple of words from haiku to identify that haiku traditionally don't have titles, but because in volume with other poems, I do have a title. And I've written some other Japanese forms of this time, but I just love the haiku. And as you see, most of my poems are quite short. I very rarely do they go more than 2 or 3 pages.
I can appreciate that. I tend to write mine fairly short as well.
So you write haiku too, Lisa?
I do. I dabble in it a little bit. It was my first form I learned when I was in 6th grade.
Yeah.
We did an anthology. My class did an anthology, and we studied all the different Asian forms of poetry. And so that was my first real exposure to writing poetry.
It's actually my grandson, who's just turned 7. He has already been exposed to haiku in this class, so it's good. It's an easy form to start getting them involved. It's good. I've helped him write a few haiku. Yeah. So it's fun.
Bonding experience there with Grandpa.
Yes.
So I think you have some poets coming into your next generation.
Hopefully, yes. Right. No, I've got another poetry collection coming out towards the end of this year or early next year. It's to be called Poems for Our World, and there again, there are a lot of poems which look at the beauty of life, but also what we're doing to the world around us, and how we're destroying some of it. And, yeah, so it's a similarly theme because it's extinction.
Maybe you can come back on when that comes out and share
Great.
some of that poetry
Great,
with us.
great, thank you. And then I have a short story collection coming out later this year in October. And that's my first short story collection. A lot of those stories I wrote actually are based on dreams that I wrote down some time ago. I was dabbling in trying to understand the dream world and how creativity works in that other state. And so half of the stories are based on dreams, and the other half are based on reality, and some are concerning social issues, immigration, veterans affairs, and human trafficking. So that'll be an interesting collection for people to look at as well. It'll be called The Mind Spins.
I love short stories. That's my other thing I enjoy reading is short stories.
And do you write short stories too?
I do. I do some.
Good. Well, this is my first collection of the first one, so maybe I'll write a few more after.
Well, thank you so much, Geza, for coming on to this show.
Thank you, Lisa, for having me. And
back when your next book comes out, just come on back, and we'd love to hear your poetry.
Great, thank you, and thank you to you and to your audience for listening to me. We'll be in touch again. Thank you.
You betcha.